everybody, and welcome again to another edition of Science on the Sphere at Home from the James E. Richmond Science Center. I am Patrick Rowley here at my home with the SOSx app from NOAA, or Science on the Sphere Explorer. It's an app that you can get on your phone or tablet, and we're going to continue our series this week with a look at some data sets in the people category of the app. Last week we are looking, I believe, at life. Yeah, so this week we're looking specifically at the people part of that life. And we're going to start with kind of a segue between last week's and this week's with a look at the human impact on marine ecosystems. So kind of a combination of other life and human life and the impact there. So I'm going to bring the screen up from the app a bit bigger on your screen for you here. All right, so there we go. And we're going to, again, start with this human impacts on human ecosystems data set. We can see the color scale here, our legend or key. All right, I'll put that right over, let's put it back over here, yeah. Okay, and so what this one does is it's kind of looking at the importance of oceans on everyone on Earth, including people and other species. Several reports have said that about 1 in 6 jobs are related to the oceans, even if that's indirectly. And around 50% of all species on Earth are supported by the ocean. And then this report that we get this data set from shows that around 40% of the world's oceans are heavily impacted by human activities, whether that be things like overfishing and pollution. This data set is looking at that 17 different human activities like pollution, overfishing, fertilization runoff, right? And commercial shipping, more indirect changes like sea surface temperature rising due to climate change, ocean acidity, things like that. So this is kind of a visual representation of the data compiled in that report. It's a report called A Global Map of Human Impact on Marine Ecosystems, and it was published in Science magazine. And you can see here on the scale where we have areas that have very high versus low impact. You'll notice as we look towards the poles, there's less human impact. There's less people living up in the poles, so that makes sense, especially the North Pole, around Antarctica as well. And it's a kind of a gradient as you move out from there. As you move, though, into primary fishing areas, whether that's deep ocean or near the coastlines, you'll see that there's some higher to very high. Like here in the Caribbean, you can see the main fishing areas as almost lines of high to very high, right along the coastlines as well. Up here, though, we have some areas where it's lower, but then very high spots as well. Big, again, big primary fishing areas where we have a high impact on those marine ecosystems. So the next data set is going to be one that's I've shown a few times at the Science Center, and it's actually right next on the list there in the people section. And this is human transportation. So it's kind of showing the human footprint of global transportation by land, in the air, on the land, and by sea, rather. All right, and it's just a way to show how interconnected all of us here on Earth are. So we have all these different lines and colors on here, and the red lines are representing the about 87,000 daily flights per day globally on a normal day. Whereas the blue lines are showing the path of around 3,500 commercial shipping routes, which is only 10% of the total. So if we added all of them, it would just kind of be a big blob on there. So it's only looking at 10%, so you get the idea of where those shipping routes are. Then all of the green that we see on here, deep down, it's kind of hard to see because of all the other colors, are the world's roads used by around 1 billion motor vehicles globally. Especially see some of that there in Australia. So again, showing how interconnected we are around the world physically, right? And we're also connected digitally as well. So this is another favorite one to see. This is looking at Facebook friendships. And this was actually published 10 years ago now, in 2010, by a Facebook intern looking at a plot of Facebook friendships globally. And what's interesting is they didn't add any land masks or borders. We're able to see that only through the maps of these connections, right? And it's a plot of only 10 million pairs of Facebook friendships. Kind of like with looking at the shipping routes, if they added all of them, it would just be a big blobby mess, and you wouldn't actually see any connections in the individual lines. So this is 10 million pairs of the 500 million people that were on Facebook at the time in 2010. Now keep in mind there's around 1 billion, over 1 billion people on Facebook now. And you'll notice that some areas of the world, North Korea, China, they're not really showing up too much on here because even today, Facebook is banned to some degree, or they have a lack of internet. So we don't see as many of those on there. So we are not just connected physically, but also digitally as well. So the next thing I want to show you is this data set that it's actually a movie, and it's called the World Population Movie, to look at kind of the population has changed through time. So it takes a while, so I'm not going to show you the whole thing. So what I want to do is just kind of run you through a little version of it I've pre-recorded for you so that you can then download the app and try it yourself and see the full version. So what this data set does, it starts out with kind of a little introduction. It's nowhere near as pixelated as it's showing up here. It's just the way I recorded it on my computer. So it's a little introduction about the world's population and what that population means for society as a whole. Then it goes into these dots, each dot being 1 million people through time. And of course, at the beginning stages, things are pretty slow. There's a few like clusters of people, but other parts, like especially in the Americas, not too many people here during the Mayan Empire. Then we move in, I fast forwarded to slave trade, colonial America, and the dots really start picking up as we move into those areas. We're in the world wars, the revolutions. Now it goes into the future and starts predicting the future before kind of concluding there. That's all I've got for you this week. We'll see you next week. Don't forget to look out for some more activities posted on our website and our Facebook and Twitter pages tomorrow. And until next week, have a good weekend.